What if I told you that in the grandest palaces of history, there were servants who were forced to be silent, literally. They were sometimes born mute, sometimes punished into silence, and their silence hid secrets darker than you could ever imagine. Picture this: gilded corridors echoing with footsteps, shimmering chandeliers casting dancing light across marble floors, and in the shadows, a silent watcher. A servant who must not speak, cannot speak, and dares not break the hush. Mute servants were not born simply, they were created. Stripped of voice, denied a single word, trained to observe and never reveal. Their silence was a tool wielded by royals for control, inheritance, and secrecy. They carried secrets that kings feared, betrayals that no one could hear, until it was too late. The truth was far worse than anyone imagined. And today we step into their world. Silence was more than an absence of sound, it was power. In palaces across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, nobles demanded total silence from some servants to control information, limit gossip, and maintain absolute privacy. Medieval European courts. Some attendants were required to serve with no speech at all, no comments, no murmurs, only actions. They were mute by condition or commanded into silence. Dessert plates were served with no words, whispers passed through gestures alone. Their silence was a sign: I know nothing, and I cannot say a word. Mughal India. Eunuchs often had to prove total muteness, making them trusted gatekeepers inside royal women's quarters. But sometimes, loyal children or young servants had tongues severed or tongues scarred because secrets leaked. The punishment for a single word could be deadly. Qing Dynasty China. Krawl girls were often mute, either born so or forced silent. They accompanied concubines, overheard court gossip, and their loyalty lay in secrecy. Rumor says if one spoke, she simply vanished, no trial, no noise. These silent servants were invisible watchers, seeing clandestine lovers meeting at dawn, overhearing poison plotted in wine cellars, sensing betrayals in quiet courtyard whispers. They held knowledge kings would kill for, but they had no voice to protect themselves, or to use it. Imagine a hush falling in a golden hall. No sound, only faint footfalls of a silent servant trailing behind royalty. That hush kept secrets and sometimes crimes. Silencing was not always voluntary, it was decisive, cruel, and irreversible. Some were born mute or deaf mute and sold to royal service because they posed no threat to confidentiality. Others were mutilated, tongues cut, vocal cords damaged, lips seared. The pain was excruciating. The screams before silence, they echo in whispered legends. Records from medieval Persia and Ottoman archives mention children returned to royal courts without tongues. No explanation given, names stripped, and voices stolen. Some were sent away by nobles under pretense of religious education. They returned home mute, with glazed eyes and sealed lips. No parent dared ask, no court would answer. Visualize a hush moment. A servant's gasp becomes a strangled noise, then nothing. A noble watches in silence as the punishment is carried out. No words needed. Their silence was a sacrifice of voice, a sacrifice of identity. They saw everything, but they could never speak. They stood by as lovers met under moonlight, unseen, yet voiceless. They watched poison swirl into goblets even as kings smirked. They witnessed oath-breaking, conspiracies, vaults opened in shadow. They were living vaults of secrets, untouchable yet vulnerable. But silence was also torture. A mute chambermaid overheard a plot to overthrow a young empress. She tried to alert a guard, no voice came. She died days later under mysterious illness. A silent eunuch was blamed for forged letters when a prince fell ill. He could not defend himself. Within weeks, he was gone. In some courts, muteness became suspicion itself. A servant who knew too much, but could not speak. That made them dangerous. They might be spies, so rumor says. They were sometimes executed for treason before court proceedings began. Silence was a prison, but for a powerless servant, it became a weapon, if they survived. But here is the twist: silence was power if they learned to navigate its shadows. One Renaissance Italian mute page began lip-reading diplomats. He could read letters entering and leaked vital intel to his patron. Conspiracies unraveled because of what he overheard, but never said. In Mughal courts, a mute eunuch gained the trust of a queen mother. He moved through harems, passing messages in silence. He saved a prince's life by sneaking medicines without ever declaring his name. In 17th-century Ottoman palaces, a mute servant protected a sultan's secret heir from ambitious viziers. He moved lit candles in corridors, held letters inside coat linings, signed with a nod, a gesture. Suddenly, silence became not a weakness, but an unseen shield. Loyalty hidden in voiceless devotion. They could protect whole dynasties, save lives or betray them. And still they could never ask for mercy. But the price was heartbreak. Emotional isolation. No voice to connect. No goodbye. No apology. Physical pain. Tongue searing. Forced muteness. Scars never fully healing. Social erasure. They existed, but vanished from memory. Imagine waking up to a life of sought for silence. You exist, but you cannot speak. You watch others laugh, cry, speak of hope while you carry a vacuum inside. No echo of your voice. No words of protest. Legend says a mute servant in the French royal court scratched words onto a wall, "I am alive." I remember. The wall was whitewashed the next day, and she disappeared. At night, these servants likely wept in secret. They remembered childhood laughter. Tears rolled down in candlelight. Dreams of children asking, "What do you think?" Echoed. Silence responded. Yet day by day, they pulled curtains, poured wine, stood sentinel, mute shadows serving power. Their voices stolen for good. But sometimes, silence shifted everything. A mute servant in Tudor England saved the king's life. In the middle of the night, a drunk noble tried to enter the king's chamber. The mute man blocked the door, no voice, only fast, silent restraint. The assailant was caught. A Qing-era silent page memorized whispered state secrets. Decades later, when a court minister tried to rewrite policy, the mute man revealed the original draft. No speech needed, only careful copying behind walls. In Byzantine palaces, a blind and mute slave witnessed a plot against the emperor. Using sign language, he warned the royal guard, thwarting an assassination. These rare stories show that silence can be a source of influence and rescue, not always doom. But the majority of silent servants never received their due. They remained shadows, their bravery unspoken, their suffering forgotten. So pause and imagine, what if, tonight, a stranger stole your voice? You woke up, able to see, to hear, and even to think, yet utterly unable to speak. No whispers, no laughter, no plea for help. You are present, but voiceless. Would you survive that world? Could you become a hero or a ghost? History's mute servants remind us of the power and terror of silence. It both sheltered secrets and was the secret's greatest wound. Their stories speak across centuries, not with words, but with history's hush. They served behind curtains, moved through shadows, and sometimes shaped kings without a single spoken sentence. Now I ask you, would you survive a life of silence? Or would your unspoken words become your secret strength, or your downfall? Let me know in the comments below. And if you are drawn toward more untold highlights of royal history, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because every silenced voice deserves to be heard, even if it speaks no words.